Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. We have you guys have the most difficult job because it is right before lunch.
Yeah.
So, and the panel afterwards or the talk afterwards is to keep people awake. This is to get people out of the door as quickly as possible. I'm not going to do what most moderators do, which is talk for a very long time. I'm going to ask questions that I'm interested in learning. I hope you guys will feel the same way when I ask those questions. So without further ado, we'll go from left to right. Why don't we start with some introductions, who you are, what your company does, and then where you are at what stage your company at.
Of course. So my name is Gaurav Patel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cognita Labs. We started at Rice University. I was a research engineer there about 10 years ago. We build respiratory diagnostic and monitoring technologies for chronic respiratory conditions such as asthma and COPD. In a quick intro, lungs are difficult organs to measure, so there are no vital monitors for lungs. So we build a simplified test that allows these patients to monitor their lungs, measure, early diagnose COPD, for example. We have 2 510(k) clearances, FDA clearances for 2 devices, few more in pipeline. We are in 18 countries, and our customers have used the device in more than 250,000 tests.
All right, great. Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Murat. So first of all, thanks a lot for Ashu and Patel to invite us. Really excited about the opportunities here with DHI. I'm Gaurav. I'm the founder and CEO of Raga.AI. We are solving one important problem for AI in healthcare, which is bringing trust, reliability, and safety to AI in healthcare. We work with providers, payers, and small, medium clinics, solving their problems, enabling healthcare AI, agentic AI, Gen AI, right? And we'll talk more about it. A range of exciting problems, efficiencies can be brought in. Briefly about myself, I used to lead autonomous driving AI for NVIDIA for a few years. Realized that scaling AI there itself was extremely difficult, right? Today we don't even see a lot of autonomous driving cars around, some in SF, I guess. Same issues, and that's where I'm really excited to work in this domain for healthcare. Yeah.
I'm Brian Parrish. I'm here for comic relief. No, I've been a practicing cardiology pharmacotherapist, Houston Methodist Hospital for a little more than a year, Luma, a little less than 21 years, so somewhere in there. Been fortunate to spin out MAPS. I invented a software that detects and prevents medication errors in the clinical dynamic environment. Dr. Sukar and I also launched and invented our MAPS Brain, which is our AI model that is a little bit smarter than me, but not smarter than her. And so we're excited to be here.
Jesse Adams. I'm co-founder and CEO of Synopic. We're a right spin-out, and we are developing an imaging technology for ophthalmic surgeons to provide better visualization, provide depth perception in a very compact space in the eye where other technologies fail. And we're looking at assisting surgeons with navigation as well as an anatomical identification so that they can really provide procedures for patients who haven't been able to get those procedures done and really move the space forward in glaucoma as well as retina.
Amazing. Hey folks, I'm Nikhil. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Ambience Healthcare. We build technology that sits inside the clinical workflow. So before a clinician talks to a patient, how do we summarize all the context for that person so they're prepared for the visit? It's technology that listens to the conversation, automates documentation, it automates communications between patients and their families, other providers, then also a lot of the coding and billing and rev cycle tools in the back end. We work with a number of large academic institutions, Houston Methodist, Cleveland Clinic, UCSF. We've raised about $250 million of funding to date, sort of the stage of the company.
Wonderful. So we have a very diverse panel, and you're all in different stages in your developments and with your companies. One of the things that I'm very curious to understand is, what is one problem? If you had a magic wand and you get to solve one problem, what would be that problem, and then let's mix it up a little bit. Maybe Nikhil, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I think the problem that we're focused on right now, we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we build technology that sits seamlessly in the workflow in front of the clinician and sort of free them up from administrative tasks. Now that you've got all this time, sort of the next frontier that we're very excited about is how do you then enable that clinician to take as effective care as possible for that patient in front of them as possible. So we're building this agent that can deeply understand the context of this patient, reason over the clinical guidelines, and help clinicians make better decisions. So one example, number of patients in this country have heart failure. A very small percentage of those patients are actually on guideline-directed medical therapy for that heart failure, probably 20 to 30% on average. How do we leverage the context in the EHR, the guidelines, to then nudge a clinician to help them understand whether or not that patient is actually on the right therapeutic regimen, and how do we help titrate that person towards a regimen that actually works for managing their heart failure and keeping them out of the hospital over a long period of time. You can imagine across the dozens and dozens of chronic diseases, there's a great opportunity to enable us to actually increase the standard of care for the average patient.
So can I say integrating that seamlessly into the clinician's workflow? That's 100%. The problem that you would want to solve?
It's like, how do you make best practice standard practice?
Okay. What about you?
So I think, based on what we're working on, providing vision where it's not possible today, right? So you have surgeons that, rely on their eyes, and they can get to certain areas, but there are spaces behind the cornea, behind in the eye that are just not reachable for what we're working on. There are other areas in the body that you can get cameras in, but they provide substandard imaging. And so what we want to do is provide the means to do that, but also provide that in a way that we can use things like robotic-assisted surgery, so not just for the eyes of the surgeon, but also for the eyes of a robot to work together. So what I'd like to be able to do is put those two things together, and then to piggyback on what Nikhil is saying, is actually output something that can be put right into the system. I've talked to many surgeons, and one thing they don't like doing is the afterwork. Doing the post work and processing everything and making sure that we get it right. So being able to take that data, that very rich data that you get from a procedure, and carrying it all the way through the process of taking care of a patient.
Brian?
Yeah, I think, from our standpoint, for those of you who don't know me in here, you're not clinical or medical, what's the third leading cause of death in the United States? That's not a rhetorical question. Does anybody know that answer? What's that? Medical errors, the third leading cause of death in the United States of America. Not anything else. Cancer and cardiovascular disease are all that's above that. So from our standpoint, we're developing technologies to try and prevent and solve that problem. And our first step was going after medication errors. And medication errors are the most common type of error. 1.5 million people harmed per year. This is a $21 billion a year problem that does not include litigation. And every hospital is involved in this, and we all have to deal with this daily. And our solution is fully embedded within Epic. We leverage AI. So we use AI only when we need it, and we'll talk more about that shortly, because that's the most important part about using AI. So we work in a structured and unstructured environment. We are fully embedded within the electronic health record, and we do not stop the workflow, which is a key for alert fatigue. We're developed by clinicians for clinicians. And our model and our software, the way we're hosted, is key, and the way you're integrated within the hospital is key to having your software be a success. A lot of software over the years has been very rigid. They lack the ability to innovate, to create, and to move forward because of the way they're structured. And so a part of that key at preventing medical errors, preventing medication errors, is being able to move and adapt, not just with your patient, but with your providers. We're trying to protect providers just as much as we are trying to protect the patient.
Yeah. So for us, for me personally, it's how can we bring trust to use of AI? AI is amazing. LLMs are amazing. All of us use it on a daily basis almost. But can we bring that power to healthcare and basically solve that in a way where we can rely on that technology, both on the healthcare side, on the physician side, and the patient side? I think that's where we see a big challenge today across the industry. And that's the direction that I'm very excited to work on, yeah.
What do you think is the biggest barrier when it comes to adoption? Again, we'll try to make this as conversational as possible, and you guys can ask questions to each other as well. But when you said barriers, like what are some of those barriers that you see hospitals adopting AI? And we'll come back to it after you, but maybe if you can briefly touch on that, and we'll come back to this as well.
Yeah, I think there are two big barriers we see, and both is in the umbrella of trust and quality, as we say, right? So number one is the quality of data, and how do I quantify and use that to build the right AI? There's so much data around, right? But quality of data, of millions and millions of data points, is a big challenge. To ingest and build the right AI. Right? And number two is the output of the AI. How can I rely on that output, right? Means if I'm using LLM for my personal use just to get some information, right, I'm fine. But if I'm going to make a decision for a medical decision, right, I want to be 100% sure. So I think these two are the big challenge. There's a third thing of compliance. We'll come to that, but they're related to that, yeah.
What about you? Magic wand, one problem.
Right,
you're trying to solve.
I'll answer from a little different perspective. So I'll talk about the technical aspect of what we do, but if I had a magical wand, and one thing I can do is help solve the problem of education awareness, because whatever we are doing as a startup, as a company, as a new technology, folks don't know about us. Clinicians don't know about us. Clinicians do not have time to research what's newest and latest out there. And that's the biggest problem for us, because we are medical device technology. We are bringing this new test, which is reimbursable. They can start using tomorrow and get reimbursed and help patients, but they just don't know about it. It requires a lot of marketing budget, huge effort to go out there and reach. And if you just rely on publications and stuff, it's going to take 200 years. So, because they don't have time to read research papers. I mean, we have the freedom and liberty to do research. I mean, I was in a great position to do that, but a lot of physicians don't have time to do that. And AI is solving that too, to some extent. But that's the biggest challenge. We have some ideas that we're working on, how to go out there, how to do it in a way that does not look a purely marketing activity, but also an educational, just awareness, letting folks know that there are better ways of doing things that complement standard of care. We are not really replacing it, but helping patients. So that's the biggest challenge for us, unsolved.
And this might be, I feel like I'm the least educated person looking around and knowing some familiar faces. I genuinely feel the least educated person in this room, so bear with me. I have a stupid business question. Why can't you hire more salespeople, more marketing budget? Is it a matter of raising funds, priorities, not having the right people?
I think that will depend on the company culture and what founders care about. For us, we have always prioritized R&D over marketing and sales process,
Okay.
because we still feel that we have a long way to cover. We have different ideas. We are always working on building those ideas to market, rather than saying that, hey, we have 2 products and that's it, we are going all full marketing, because we feel that we really haven't solved the challenge yet. So for now, we are focusing more on R&D, so that always takes the first priority, and then the sales and marketing, because I think sales and marketing, there is no limited amount of funding you can throw at it. That's not that I'll throw $2 million at it and then we can solve this problem. You can throw $2 million, $20 million, so $100 million. So that's our priority. But I think it could change from company to company.
Yeah. Before we come back to the trust and AI issue, maybe very quickly again around the room around this awareness, because some of you have niche products, and some of you, like Nikhil, you're in a more, right now it's in media, but more people know about it, but some of you have like the vision product, you're more in niche markets. So how do you try to solve that awareness solution for the physicians, for the people that purchase your product? So maybe if we can go quickly around, and then we'll come back to the AI trust.
Yeah, no, I think Gaurav raised a very important point of awareness. And as startups, right, we are very limited resources to focus on, right, and where to focus on. I think so there are multiple ways. I think our colleagues will talk more about it. Obviously, working with initiatives like DHI is a great opportunity, right? Because you get access to a broader set of audience immediately, right? Working with the other opportunities is doing marketing or co-marketing, right, with our customers. Obviously, direct sales is always an option, right? We ourselves, we are an open source software. So we have a big community of developers and who use and that becomes another way of awareness for us, for the community in general.
Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I think for us, we started with a single focus of, eliminating medical errors, but you have to listen. You got to listen to your customers. They're telling you what they need. They have these problems.
I'll remind you that tomorrow.
Please do. Please do. Can you tell we work together? But yeah, so you have to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to move with what the market needs. You know you have a problem and you're going to solve this solution. You cannot lose sight of that. At Salus, we're going to eradicate medical errors forever. But this hospital needs this. This hospital needs this. The way you set up your technology needs to be able to adapt. Most of my learners ask me what are 3 qualities you need to be successful in business and when you're inventing something, because I've been there. I'm an inventor, I'm an innovator. My mind does not stop. You have to be able to adapt, accept, and be appropriately assertive. Know when to speak up, know the right time to speak up, be able to adapt to your situation, be able to accept that you're not going to get everything that you want and that your product needs to do something other than your original focus. So we're already shifting our focus to meet other needs. We're in partnership discussions with massive hardware companies that are not in truly the medical error prevention space. It's the way our technology is hosted.
Yeah, I think in our space, and we're very specific, but we have a product that can expand to different spaces like GI, potentially even cardio. I think that it's a problem. Gaurav brought it up, and it's a problem for us. It's a problem for a lot of folks. You go to key opinion leaders, and you hope that trickles down. And what we're trying to do is actually level the playing field for surgeons. All surgeons want to say they're the best, of course. But the reality is, you have conferences, and it's the top 5% surgeons that are there. So it's an ongoing problem of how to reach those folks. And in some aspects, it is sales and marketing and trying to get to hospitals and ambulatory surgery centers and hoping that it works down. But it's difficult. It's a difficult prospect. We really want to reach out and get something to everybody so that we can raise up folks that maybe struggle a little bit on difficult procedures and surgeries, but it's hard. It's hard, and it's obviously a problem we're tackling, but it's something we'll continue to strive for.
I think the way we think about it is if you do an incredible job delivering value to your customer, to your user, they're going to be the ones that share sort of the success with the rest of their community. And so being thoughtful about who you partner with, so obviously partnering with an organization like Houston Methodist is incredible because many organizations in the country look to Houston Methodist to decide what to do. But for Houston Methodist to decide, for instance, that they actually want to adopt something requires you to actually get into the weeds, deliver a level of physician and user love, and deliver a level of value to the organization for them to feel comfortable actually adopting the technology and talking about it. So I think we think very deeply about, first and foremost, are you building the right product? Are you serving your customers well? And if you're driving enough value, there's almost an organic effect that comes out of it. And that's sort of been the driving philosophy of everything that we do. Because we're also not a sales and marketing company by DNA. We're a product company. We're an R&D company. But in many ways, we think that you can actually turn a product and R&D advantage into a go-to-market advantage if you actually do an incredible job of delivering value. Potentially synergistic to some of the challenges in very bespoke specialty areas. One of the things that we're thinking about is how do we take the position we have at the point of care to educate a clinician on the range of options that might be available to them. Because it is one thing for an organization to decide, as part of care standards, we're now going to adopt a new diagnostic that's reimbursable, and a totally different thing to actually see that adoption propagate through the entire service line. And so we see ourselves as potentially a very natural partner to a lot of these companies doing diagnostics and therapeutics, where a service line leader might come in and say, hey, we're now going to use this new technology to analyze EKGs for cardiac amyloidosis. Amazing, we've made that decision. How do we actually make sure the entire service line adopts this over the next 6 months? We see ourselves as a sort of a natural ecosystem partner to help surface the right diagnostic, the right treatment, the right education in the workflow at the right time.
So the consensus that I heard from the group is build a good product, listen to your customers so you deliver value, and then it wouldn't really hurt to have a good sales and marketing team. So that wouldn't hurt. I want to go back to AI. I think you pointed out some of the challenges, and I'll start with you, and I'll ask you to elaborate a little bit more. But we are what you might call more on the buy side, the Houston Methodist Center for Innovation. We don't develop tools and products. We don't do, we just do digital. We don't do drugs and therapies or medications, surgical products. So we just purchase digital tools. I think from more of the procurement perspective, I see two things. One is we don't want to manage 50 different AI applications because that makes the trust a little bit more, because that will tie into my next questions. And then obviously the aggregating data, the privacy around it becomes very challenging for us as well. So from my perspective, I always want to be cognizant how much data we're sharing and how many applications we're managing. So that's my procurement challenge. But starting with you, what are some of the barriers you're seeing hospitals, payers, others, whoever your end user customer is, adopting AI?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, and there are some real challenges, specifically when it comes to sensitive data in healthcare. And there I would say three things, right? One is data privacy, extremely important, right? All systems have to be HIPAA compliant, right? So what it means is that any data that is going in any AI, let's say a ChatGPT, has to be HIPAA compliant or de-identified. Anything which is coming out should not have PII, PHI, right? So extremely sensitive area. And there have been instances, actually, public instances of data leakage, right? And that's extremely detrimental, right? So that's number one. Number two is the reliability of the output, right? How do I ensure that the AI or Gen AI and let's say ChatGPT or the versions that we are using is giving the right output all the time? How can I rely on that? If I am going to take some feedback from it which I want to use in my decision making, then that becomes an extremely, extremely important care about, right? Which we see, right, all the time, right? And the third thing is the quality of the AI itself that we are building, right? And which includes the quality of the data that goes in, right? So fundamentally, basically, reliability and data privacy becomes the most important thing. Yeah.
It's a great question, and thinking from hospitals' perspective, there are so many specialty areas, and if you start bringing in best technologies from each area, it's going to crowd the IT office for sure. And we are on the other side because we work in specialty. I think it's foremost important for the vendor is to be flexible. So allow EHR integrations, Epic integration, other EHR that you might be using. I don't think there's any magic wand where we can say that, hey, everything will be inside EHR. It depends on the workflow. So you can integrate a lot of things such as login, data coming in, security, charting, alerts, all part of the EHR. So you don't really have to manage other application. But let's say a physician wants to dig deep, or the nurses want to dig deep, what's happening with the patients. There are things that the specialty solution is going to do better than just charting in EHR. Mm-hmm. So at that point, there are ways you can integrate where it's a click of a button where it just authenticates the user and you just go to a new screen, which is from the vendor, and it visualizes or shows the information that it's not part of the Epic. So that could be as simple as it gets. But on the other side, I do not have an answer on how do you manage, because it's not just about the integration, it's also about, I'm sure, cybersecurity as well, because you'll have to go through cybersecurity assessment for all these vendors. So even though the integration is done well, you still have to manage them on a yearly basis. Well, there are third-party platforms now, Sensinet, I'm not sure if you guys are using it, but that integrates cybersecurity assessments, so the same platform can be used for all your vendors. That could help. Maybe that matures over time, that really streamlines the cybersecurity assessment. But I do not believe at this point there is a solution where we can just say that, hey, everything will go into EHR and then you don't have to worry about vendor application management.
Yeah.
I hope that it could happen over time. I don't think Epic is really flexible about working with vendors. They do allow APIs and stuff like that, but I don't think it's beyond that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that because I have some questions about EHRs.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What barriers you're seeing hospitals facing?
Most hospitals are not like Houston Methodist or Johns Hopkins. There's over 6,000 US hospitals. They're small, rural, kind of disconnected. AI is incredibly scary to them. You got to be careful with how you come at them, so forth. So transparency is key. I don't want to echo all the comments that my colleagues made because I agree with them, but most hospitals just have a lack of an understanding, just like many people in this room, of what AI really is. It's not a robot dog that's going to come in and bite your leg here shortly, or it can be. It's actually somewhat simplistic and easy to control depending on how you do it. So the one thing that I think hospitals need more of an understanding of comes from us, the experts in this field, is that, hey, listen, we can start small and work our way up. Now, I'm in the AI side on clinical surveillance, dynamic clinical monitoring, pharmacotherapy, diagnostics. This is a real touchy subject and an incredibly complicated area to just roll out an AI model and say, start making decisions. That does not work. And it doesn't work because you've got moving targets in every direction. That's a whole nother story. But the transparency about what your AI model is doing for your hospital is key. For example, right now, we're only leveraging it for natural language processing in certain situations where ICD-10 codes and SNOMED codes do not exist. Something simple that they can understand and they can rely on and then begin to learn, and you can learn together. So.
Yeah, similarly, I think, and we're working in imaging, but along, I think health records, this also is important, is transparency in the algorithm, but transparency in where the data came from as much as possible. So partnering with somebody like Methodist, for example, is huge to say this is where we got the data legally. We took this data, obviously, anonymity is huge, and make sure we anonymize as much as possible. But being very transparent about this is where the data came from, and this is why you can trust it because it's been handled properly, and we've gotten these images from so many cases, and therefore you can trust that as it goes into this algorithm. And then as Brian said, you need to be transparent about what you're doing with that data once you get there. So being direct with that and not putting things into a black box. Essentially, the black box thing is what scares people. They don't understand what's happening. Which is already tough with the new technology. It's even tougher with AI because people think it's magic, and some people trust it, some people won't at all. If you can just make that clear, communicate what it's doing, where it came from, that really simplifies things.
Maybe I'll talk about two elements that we haven't really touched upon. One is just can the technology be adopted on the ground by the end user? And this is almost like it feels obvious that you can't benefit from technology if you're not using it. But I think one of the things coming from the outside that oftentimes folks don't fully appreciate is just the cognitive load on a doctor and a nurse every single day. And to make a change in workflow is actually such a big step. And so if you're putting in technology that potentially creates errors, that creates a broken workflow, that adds more work, it'll be abandoned so fast. And I think what makes this problem especially tricky for a health system is you think about the range of environments, for instance, that sit inside of Houston Methodist. The way the primary care department works is so different from how the oncologist service line works, so different from the inpatient setting. And so getting to that magical level of user experience within each of these care settings for every single user is actually an insanely high bar. And yet, if you don't accomplish that, your technology will be banded so fast that there will never even be an opportunity to talk about the value you get to create. So I think that's actually an underappreciated bar where a lot of technology goes to die. Perhaps the second, and this is potentially a little bit boring but important, is the reality is the macroeconomic climate doesn't create a lot of opportunity to go experiment with fun toys. NIH cuts, state funding cuts, the threat of an endowment tax. I think the vast majority of institutions we work with are in a place where every single investment within the span of a couple of quarters has to have some sort of business case and some sort of ROI for the system. And if you're not able, just all the challenges we've been talking about here, application rationalization, the burden of managing multiple applications, the fact that there's just limited bandwidth to invest in things. If you're not solving an important enough problem for the organization, if you're not cracking the top 3, the top 5 problems for an organization, and you're not able to tie the work that you do to some mechanism to fund it, then ultimately you're going to be stuck.
I want to do a quick time check with
Thank you, Murat. We have time for a few questions from the audience.
Okay.
So we're going to open it up at this time if there's any questions for our panelists.
And we know that it is before lunch. So. There's one over there. Go ahead.
How do you go about ensuring that your technologies are being executed or developing your technologies in ways so that they won't improve that clinician experience and like not add to that
Have you all heard it?
Yeah, was that an efficiency question?
Yeah, not add. So did I hear that? Oh, go ahead. Please repeat.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
How do you ensure that the technologies fit into the clinician's current workflow?
It's a real challenge. I can tell you as a practicing pharmacotherapist, and I know Dr. Gaurav, Dr. Zogby, Dr. Sukkar, you got to lean on these individuals and learn how they all practice and what they need. Being in the trenches has helped us know where our pain points are and know where alert fatigue, inefficiencies have plagued us and prevent us from being able to do these important duties. The software, the technology has to present the information to you at the right time. Timing is everything, and that information has got to be deadly accurate, period. It cannot be off in any way, shape, or form. Running a software company is incredibly challenging. Go into device if you're trying to figure out what to do. Don't do a software company. No, it's amazing. It's incredible, but it's got to be deadly accurate. It's the way you're integrated or embedded within your system. Stopping the workflow always creates this alert fatigue and trying to pass through it. If your end audience is seeing information that doesn't help them or is outdated, or, for example, with us, we have to monitor literature every single day. We have to make updates and upgrades every single day. If it takes you 2 months to update your product, you're done. Literature comes out, we're usually updated within a couple of hours. You've got to be fast, you've got to be deadly accurate, you got to stay out of their way, you got to be ahead of them, and you got to predict what they want to know. Predictive, preventative healthcare and medicine is here. Dr. Zogby, Dr. Sukkar, Dr. Gaurav, these guys want to know what their patients might be experiencing or what could be happening to their patients before it happens. We're tired of mopping up the mess afterwards, and they want information in front of them that makes them quick. They can get to new cases, get to new patients, see more people, and do more procedures.
I can add one more thing. If you can spend half a day or one day, figure out a way working with your clinical partner, spend half a day there, just observe workflow yourself. I think ideas will come to you on how your solution fits there.
One last question here.
Sure. So what were some of the biggest success stories or challenges when it comes to achieving that first customer, first set of customers?
I could talk about that. I think probably the first health system we've ever worked with is an organization called John Muir out in Walnut Creek in the Bay Area. I think the reason why we were able to work with John Muir. So the first set of products we built was really focused on automating the administrative burden for clinicians. So automating documentation, automating coding, and a couple of sort of interesting facets about John Muir. I think one, by virtue of being based in Silicon Valley, they're extremely close to OpenAI and Google, and sort of there's a lot of expectations from clinicians whose family members work at these tech companies and expecting the same level of technology to be available to them at their practice. So that's the first. There's a culture of being open to technology. The second is, as an organization, they had a clinical leader who essentially took it upon herself to say, I'm okay being first and willing to take a step to implement something that's new and foreign. And those leaders are rare. But once you find somebody who has influence, knows how to work their organization, and is willing to be first, I think then you've got a magical combination. And then ultimately, it's up to you as a partner to show up at every step of the way to make sure that you don't fail this person. And so we put an insane amount of energy, essentially, solving problems, because the reality is when you're doing your first, the number of things that you don't even anticipate that could possibly go wrong, it'll keep you up at night. But if you have a team and a culture that's just committed to showing up and making sure you don't disappoint this person, because you remember this person is staking their entire career and reputation to help you succeed, I think magic can happen. The thing that you have to be very careful about is never promise something you can't deliver on.